Hi, welcome back to Lifestyle with me, Pam Joseph, here at Cotton's Restaurant in Islington. I'm in awe, because I'm joined by such a great actor. Honestly, I really mean this. He goes by the name of Cyril Nri. Now, some of you may remember him in The Bill, Othello even, but Julius Caesar. He plays Cassius and Julius Caesar. What can I say? Let me bow.
Pat, stop it.
I ain't gonna wash my hands for months now. What can I say? Thank you ever so much. I know you're busy. I know you are. It's so many things. Some people all want you all over the place.
I'm working with her brother.
Patterson, of course.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's great to have you on the show. We've been going on for so many years now, and I met you at the Screen Nation Awards, and you guys were up. We were up for the first time, and for nearly 7 years, that was our first recognition for this show.
Oh wow! Big up.
Big up. It was an honour to see you there. Yeah. But let's go back a bit now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about you, Cyril. How did you start off into the world of acting?
How did I start off? I started off like most young London kids. I wanted to get out of a lesson, and they said you could miss double maths if you were doing this school production, and so I wanted to miss double maths on a Friday.
It's a no-brainer, isn't it?
It was a no-brainer, but I wasn't expecting to get the lead, and I went along and I auditioned, school auditions, nothing major, and I got the lead.
Yeah.
And it sort of started from there.
Yeah.
And then I went...
But you got the bug. Was it from there that you got the bug?
I think the bug had been a little before then. Okay. When I first got into secondary school, and I was at Holland Park, we had a thing, I was in the chorus of a show, which the sixth formers did, the big boys.
Yeah.
And they had a party at the end of their production, and my mum wouldn't let me go. Because she thought I was too young, and sixth formers, she thought they were going to be getting up to stuff.
Yeah.
And that was the real. I felt left out.
Okay.
I wanted to,
be a part of.
I wanted to go and hang out with the good guys.
Yeah.
And then years later, this show came up. It was double maths.
Yeah.
No brainer.
Yeah, no brainer.
And I went for it. And I got the lead, and then it was all drama.
Okay, because you also studied at the Bristol Oak Vic Theatre School before joining the Royal Shakespeare Company.
Yeah.
So what gap are we talking about here? How many?
Well, we had school, and we did school shows. I wrote part of my last school show because the writer of it went off to do a TV series.
Okay. Oh.
Because he was a writer and we were improvising stuff. He got a big TV series, he went off to write that. The teacher turned around and went, "Cyril, you write it." And so I did. And
did you know you had the knack until they said?
No, not really.
Not really. So you just got pushed into the deep end and you just did it?
And did it overnight. We did that show, it went to Edinburgh. It won the Schools on the South Bank thing, so we did it at the National Theatre. And then the bug was fully in, and I went off to Bristol. And from there, I don't know, I was sort of thinking career would go, I'll spend 10 years doing the regions and things, and then I may get a job at the RSC, the Royal Shakespeare Company, finally. I was in my second year at drama school, and I got a job at the RSC. And so it sort of just happened. Yeah.
Meantime, what were your parents saying? Because weren't they telling you go into your education?
I'm mixed parentage. I have a Bajan mother and Nigerian father.
Bajan mother, Nigerian father.
Yeah. So neither of those are famed for wanting their kids.
That's right.
To go into something as slack
as acting.
Doctors, lawyers.
Yes, of course. Yeah,
engineers,
that's right.
All that, great.
Yeah.
But so they were both against it, but they were divorced by this point. So
you waited.
Whatever he was against, she was sort of slightly
To get
more
back, on your side, because she's not going to.
She wasn't keen.
Yeah,
but she
wasn't gonna.
She equally wasn't. She wasn't saying no.
Okay.
Because he just went no.
Yeah.
But so that was that.
That was that.
I was in 4 youth theatres across London.
Yeah, because of the Royal National Theatre Company, the Royal Court, the Manchester Royal Exchange, and the Old Vic Company.
Yeah.
My gosh.
Yeah. But when you're a kid, I started Anna Shares in Islington, down the road from here.
Oh yes.
I was in that youth theatre. The Young Vic, the Old Vic Youth Theatre, and the Royal Court Young Activists. So, I suppose I'm a bit addictive in a personality. Yeah. So what happens is I get hold of something and then I want them all.
You want them all.
Everything.
But I think your parents must have seen how serious you are, because you weren't mucking about. You were joining all these organisations.
Yeah.
They had a name.
They had a name.
These organisations had a name, so they could see how serious you were. Yeah. So maybe that's why perhaps you was left alone to get on with it.
Yeah, I mean, you had to do all your other work. We weren't... both my sisters were at uni. It was expected I would go to uni. Me going, no, I'm going to go to drama school.
Yeah, it didn't.
You still had to do all your stuff.
Yeah,
to justify it. So, it was great. It was great.
So let me ask you a question. You've got 2 sisters, no brothers?
I got 3 sisters.
You've got 3
2
sisters? 2
older, 1 younger.
2 older, 1 younger.
In my immediate family. But being a child of a Nigerian father, who was wonderful. I mean, no, he had 3 marriages along the way, because they got divorced. So he then had another marriage. He had a son through that marriage, and then she died, unfortunately. So he had another marriage and 3 more kids. So there's a lot of us.
So you got quite a wide thing there, and your siblings there going on. They're proud of you, no doubt.
Great. They're all proud of me.
Yeah.
But they've got real jobs.
You've got a real job.
Yeah,
You've got a real job entertaining us all.
They have, day in, day out, important jobs.
Yeah. But
this is an important job.
Yeah,
it is an
you're
important
doing the
job,
important thing for us, because this is what we're into. You've got credits to your name, such as, I'm not even going to go to the stage yet. I'm going to go to more familiar things that the viewers may know about. EastEnders, This Life, Pie in the Sky, Arabian Nights, Calling the Shots, Family Affairs, and Good Night, Sweetheart.
Yeah.
That's only a few. Your biggest one was when you played the Bill, when you was
Okaro.
You had a height. You was in charge of the whole thing.
That was one of those things. I'd been in the Bill twice before.
That, I didn't know you were tall, but when I saw this is the guy he's head of the department, the police department. You don't see that in England.
You don't see it in England. It was the first time, and actually, there was a friend of mine, George Harris, played a character called Walcott on television, who was a black detective way back, and George was really the first.
Really?
But as far as bosses go, that was the first.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things where how could you turn that down? It was brilliant. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
I'd been in the Bill twice before though. I'd been in the Bill the first time as a barrister 12 years before, and then I was a Rwandan refugee, about 4 years before that, and then I came back as
as chief superintendent. I mean, my gosh, it was brilliant to see that.
What was great was that across the board, I remember standing at Carnival, and you're on Ladbroke Grove, which is the area I grew up in, and you've got 3 generations, all female. You had the grandmother, the mother, and the child. And you also had, on the other side, you had a real superintendent, and then he was in charge of 6 men.
Yeah.
And both sides were asking for my autograph. And you're going, okay, well, this is just weird. Because you got all the generations, and then you have policemen too.
Yeah.
And I suppose my relationship with policemen was that you were slightly weary. And I suppose my mother would have said, why would you bring a policeman to my door? So you just kept away.
Yeah.
We weren't bad kids, we weren't trouble.
No.
But you just didn't mix with the police. It wasn't the done thing. So, yeah.
When it comes to the stage work, we're not going to do Julius Caesar yet. We'll do that after the break. We'll talk about Othello.
Yeah.
Now, did you have to go for an audition, or did the director just say, I want you to play Othello? Did you have to do the audition?
There were 2 occasions. When I first was out of drama school, I'd finished at the Royal Shakespeare Company because that was my first job at the Royal Shakespeare Company. And then it was a year or so later, I was offered, and I'd done the part of Oedipus. And you know when you feel too young to play a part, because you may be right age-wise, and you may be right physically and all the rest of it, but intellectually, mentally, emotionally, you're not quite there yet. And so I turned it down the first time I was offered Othello. And then this chance came up. And I just thought, well, if I don't do it now,
you may never get the chance.
I may never get the chance. And it was just, it was one of those things that worked out. I want to get together, though, all the guys that have played Othello, all the black British guys that have played Othello. There's a really famous photograph of all the jazz players in New York. It's called A Great Day Out. And it has all these famous jazz players, in Harlem on a brownstone, and they're on the steps, and they're all sitting there. And you look at the picture, and it's got, just every name you could possibly imagine. And they've all got together on a Sunday morning to take this picture. And I want to recreate that with every black British guy that has played Othello. And there are quite a few of us now. And I suppose I'd call it the Sooty Bosom Club.
The Sooty Bosom?
Because that's what he's called in the play, Sooty Bosom. So the Sooty Bosom Club, And you got guys like Chiwetel, you got Patterson, you got myself, Ray, Farron, there's just loads of us. And it's great to have just, I suppose it's our Hamlet.
Yes. Brilliant.
Yeah.
We're going to talk more stage, but what we're going to do, we'll have a little break. Let me tell the viewers.
You're going to a break.
Go and cool yourself down, ladies. Have a drink or something, or put the kettle on. We're going to come back soon, and we're going to be talking everything Julius Caesar. See you soon. Hi, welcome back to Lifestyle with me, Pam Joseph. I'm joined by the great Cyril Nri. Before the break, we was talking about various things, how he started off and all the TV work that he's done. We haven't really touched too much on the stage. We've done Othello, but I really want to touch on the big one. Greg Doran's Julius Caesar. You play Cassius.
Yeah.
Against my brother's what?
Brutus. This is, I suppose, 30 years in.
Yeah.
Julius Caesar, I suppose, is the
ultimate.
It's the pinnacle.
It's the ultimate.
It was the first play I did at the Royal Shakespeare Company, straight out of drama school. I played Brutus's boy servant 30 years ago at the Royal Shakespeare Company, and at that point, you had one black actor, one black actress, if you were lucky, throughout the Royal Shakespeare Company. And people had gone before, people like Norman Beaton and Rudolph Walker, John Machachiza, and you sort of stood on the shoulders of these guys. Because, let's put it this way, when I was at school, I remember watching the television, and Norman Beaton was on in an afternoon play. And in this afternoon play, he kissed this white woman. And I was off ill. And I remember trying to find people to talk about the fact that this had been on the telly. There was a black man on the telly. Because things would stop.
Yeah, of course.
If there was a black man on the telly in the first place. Then kissing somebody. Oh my, And so for me, to join the Royal Shakespeare Company was huge. 30 years on, to be playing Cassius, you know, one of the two leads in this production, which is an all-black production.
Well, this is what let's stop a bit. Let's let the viewers who may not be affected, because this is going out to parts of Europe, France and Italy, and that they don't know about this. Let's go back. Greg Doran, did you think he took a chance on making Julius Caesar, this production, all black, or what?
Well, I didn't think he took a chance. I think other people may have thought he took a chance. I thought, finally, you know, because what happens is, as Patterson will tell you, this is the first time I've worked with Patterson, but I've known him for, 20 years. It's the first time I've worked with Ray, but I've known him, we've been friends for 25 years. What happens is that you are generally the one black guy, or one of two or three in a production. You never get to work together. There's no continuity. And so when people look at a big production like this, I think what happens is they underestimate the amount of skill and talent that there is. And what has happened with this production is that it has been such a hit, you know, that people have been surprised. We're the only guys that weren't surprised.
Okay.
You know,
because you know what you lot got.
We knew what we had, you know. And also, for a long, long time, I've said Shakespeare works better in Africa. Because in Africa, in the Caribbean, people have no problem with seeing gods, kings, and men all in the same frame, you know. And Shakespeare deals with big things happening in life with gods, kings, and men. So you're talking our language. Nobody has a problem in believing in, you know, some form of juju, some form of soothsayer, some form of, you know. Nobody has a problem with that. Nobody has a problem with a hierarchy of kings, and nobody has a problem in believing in a higher power of whatever description, you know. So Shakespeare works on that level. It speaks right to the gut. And what happened with this production is that because we brought all of that and all of the experience of playing, you know, in many different languages and cultures over the years into this, we could deliver a current, you know, moving, meaningful. The language suddenly becomes real. It doesn't become this sort of archaic language which, you know, people don't speak anymore, and, you know, people go, oh no, I don't go and see Shakespeare because, you know, it doesn't speak to me. What we have here is we have something that speaks right to you. It speaks right to you.
That's a lovely segue for me just now. To talk about people who wouldn't normally go. When we're talking about that, let's talk about our owner people. Your 15-year-old, your 20-year-old. Okay, Shakespeare to see what? When they hear that, all black cast. Now they want to go down there and see it. So that was inspirational for a lot of young people.
Of course, because it deals with what's going on now. It deals with what's going on now in the world. You know, rather than Cinna the poet when he gets killed, it is done in a way in which you would have seen, well, there's a tiring, you know, they stick a rubber tire over him, you know, and also they film on phones and things what they're doing whilst they're doing it. So you get all that sort of happy slap, you know, on the internet immediately uploaded within this production. You get the statue of Caesar going over in the same way as Saddam Hussein's statue was pulled over. You get all this. You get the world around you right now, you know, and suddenly you understand exactly what's being talked about. So this has been, as I said to Greg, this is the most fun and the best experience I have had on stage, and I've done a lot of stage work in 30 years, you know, so
And it's not ended here, because we understand you're going across the waters.
We go to New York.
Broadway? Is it Broadway?
It's Brooklyn.
Brooklyn?
Yeah. It's Brooklyn, you know.
Yeah.
Broadway's nice. Brooklyn's better.
Uh-huh.
You know. When we first started the production, the plan was that we would do Stratford-upon-Avon, where the Royal Shakespeare Company is based. We would do London in the West End.
Yes.
We would do a tour of Britain.
Yeah.
And then we would do Russia. And my thing was, Russia is great, and it filled a lot for me, you know, but what I also want to do is play it where the black people are. You know, this is an all-black production of Julius Caesar, talking right to us.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought this needs to be done where there are huge populations of black people. You know, and so I kept saying, why aren't we going to the States? Why aren't we going to South Africa, where the production had originated? The idea came from on Robben Island, where Nelson Mandela was incarcerated for 27 years. They had a copy of Shakespeare's complete works, and it was hidden in a Bible, in a Hindu Bible. And they all used to pass it round, and they would read it, and they would sign their favourite bits. And Mandela had 2 signings in Julius Caesar. It was one of his favourite plays. And that was the start of Greg coming to this production and deciding he needed to do it. And I kept saying, why aren't we going to South Africa? We need to perform it for Mandela. You know? And they'd say, oh, no, he's ill, and we won't get the money, and, you know. And I said, well, I will perform it in his garden. We don't need a set. Sit him up. You know, this is the stuff, you know, that really counts. And in the end, the tour that was organised, we didn't get South Africa because it's just the logistics of it. But what we did get was we got New York, and we got, you know, Brooklyn, where black people are at. Actually, most Shakespeare's now are performed in Brooklyn at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. Kevin Spacey was there. The RSC have been there a few times. The National Theatre go there. You know, Vanessa Redgrave was there. So, but it is in the heart of a black community.
Of course.
So this is going to be great. You know.
It's going to be great. This is April?
This is April.
You're going in April.
April and a bit of May.
And a bit of May. We're going to give the viewers more information about where they can, you know, ascertain those dates so they can get down there as well. I want to ask you a question that's so simple, it really isn't worthy of me to ask you, but I know the viewers is going to, they want me to say this to you. How proud of you? How proud do you feel that you're part of a production like this?
Well, I think this is historical. I think this is historical. I'm so proud. And that's the thing, we really have to start documenting our own history. Because when we went to Russia, we were performing in Stanislavski's theatre. You know, Stanislavski, great acting tutor and director, did all the Chekhov plays, you know. For actors, he's the pinnacle of modern acting. You know, Marlon Brando, you know, James Dean, Daniel Day-Lewis, you know, all these actors. You know, it starts at Stanislavski. For us to be taking this production of Shakespeare, which is a hugely modern production, you know, putting it on Stanislavski's stage, the Russians went wild for it, you know. Absolutely wild. I've never seen a press conference like it, you know, with cameras all over, you know, hundreds of people, you know, asking us what this was saying to the Russian people, you know, and you have to be careful with that question because Putin and, you know, but, you know, but what it was we were in this place. It was the first time for over 45 years the Royal Shakespeare Company had been in Russia. It was the first all-black company since Gershwin took Porgy and Bess there in the 20s.
That's
30s.
correct.
And so this is historical. And you know, it was electric. There was a moment between myself and Patterson on the first night that I have to say is the best experience I have had in 30 years of acting. It was just electric. And you can, it's moments like that where you go, I am so blessed.
Yes, indeed.
I do a job I love. I get the chance to practice it at this level, in these places. And the audience went wild because you speak right to them, And this is, half the audience spoke Russian and were relying on surtitles,
And imagine that.
Yeah.
And still, they were like
still,
that. Brooklyn's going to be on fire.
Brooklyn will be on fire. I'm
it's
so
gonna be
excited.
on fire, you know it.
I hear we're plastered all over the New York
Oh my
subway.
gosh, really?
I'm me and
trying to
PJ
get
have
down
been
there. I want to get down there. I know most
If
of my
you can,
fan members are going to go.
We're there from, I think it's the 7th
Look
of
straight
April.
in that camera and tell the viewers.
We are there from the 7th of April at the Brooklyn Academy of Music in Brooklyn. Come down. We will be there for a month. And then, if you fancy Ohio, we're also there for a week after that. So, you got April and you got a little bit of May. We will be there. Join us. You'll love it.
Oh, those dulcet tones. I think it's time for me to sign out. Cyril Nri. Oh, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
I'm going to try and make it to America. I want to go to Brooklyn.
Come if you can.
Yeah. This is great. This is all beautiful. And is there a website though that they could see about the production?
You can see all about it at www.rsc.org.uk, and all the information will be on there. Yeah.
All the W's, rsc.org.uk. All right. See you after the break. I'm going to get a bit more cozier with my man. See you later.